man-to-man, one-on-one coverage because the safety rolls to Jefferson's side.
This guy's like becoming like a circus act. Like he could do this.
Von Rock caught a ball with his thighs. We didn't even talk about that.
It was more of with his ass.
If he throws a good ball, this is a running, catching touchdown untouched.
To become who we want to be as individuals, and at the end of the day, that's going to help us be a successful offense.
Like, KP does like these flips after every win. Now I'm like just waiting for him to do his flips.
You can tune in anywhere that you guys follow us on social media.
Shout out to Jalen Ramsey. He sucks.
All right, welcome to the Practice Squad podcast. My name is John. I'm joined by my co-host who is currently in, San Fran? San Diego, California. We are kind of enjoying a draft cool down, right? Mark's on a trip right now. I'm actually headed out to Austin, Texas in a couple of days for kind of a little bit of a workcation as well. So all is good over here with the co-host, with the exception of the fact that Mark is a hated man now. Primarily by Colts fans.
I guess I'm a public enemy. Listen, our good friend Tyler Winnicky, one of John and I's longtime good friends, sent me a random tweet because he's a Colts fan, lives in Indy, lifetime Colts fan, right? And he sent me a tweet from his timeline. Someone screen recorded my rant, and it's now like it was like a meme. And it just showed up on his thing, and just like some random hater saying, "What does this guy know? This guy's an idiot." And it was just my face.
Dude, I mean, and look, like you're directly attacking what's about to be, a team's new franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
And I think you thought that like having, whatever it was, 8-9 minutes to explain yourself on the podcast rather than like a minute on TikTok.
I thought it would help me.
No, it definitely didn't. But my favorite thing is, look, there's two comments I have to this, right? Like the podcast has grown a lot. We are very thankful for it. And I think most people tend to like our takes, right? We have over 3 million views between the three platforms. Draft was very successful for us. I think a lot of people like the content we put out. And along with all of that success, there's going to be an increase in hate comments. And the thing is that, look, great wisdom. Mark, have you ever left like a seething hate comment on a YouTube video in your life, or do you just kind of click on to the next thing usually?
I think I've probably left a couple somewhere along my life.
But not too many.
Sit around and do it. Like that's what some people's entire day is.
And that's what I was getting at. Is can't really recall me leaving too many seething hate comments on somebody's YouTube video that they made. And so you got to be a special type of person to really just spend time just hating on somebody. And some of my favorite comments that I've seen are things like, "What does this guy know about ball? He's never played college ball." For those who do not know, Mark did play college ball. He's also a coach. So chances are Mark knows a little bit more about ball than the people that are hate commenting. And that's fine. One, you have a right to your opinion. They have the right to their opinion. And two, your opinion could still very well be wrong, but to say it's not coming from an informed place is just, incorrect. So,
but yeah, people see me going and ranting, and I guess I have a hateable face. And obviously that take is pretty controversial to some people, and they want to, rush to the comments, like you said, and just put a bunch of hate out there. And yeah, I think one of the funnier exchanges, and every once in a while, I will acknowledge the hate comments. I don't respond to most of them, and I noticed that you'll respond more than me, I think. Most of the time, I just let it be. But one of them was
I just like to stir the pot. Like when I see somebody that has, I think like a low IQ, I just like to let it simmer for them a little bit longer.
One of the comments was like sarcastically saying like, "Who is this guy? Has he ever watched film? I want to know his name and what team he played for, LOL." And I responded, said, "Mark Petrito, Central Michigan. Here's my information." Like, yeah, I played. I probably have spent more hours watching film than they have spent, breathing. So, yeah.
Well, and I mean, look, and not to beat a dead horse too, but the more that I think about this, the more that it's like, yeah, obviously you're being aggressive about the take, but like, I think about successful quarterbacks in the NFL. Was Peyton Manning a successful quarterback because of his athleticism? The dude hardly had a functional spine in the last few years of his career. Was Tom Brady as successful as he was because of his athleticism?
If we're being John,
was Phil Rivers?
I like where you're going here, John, because the truth of the matter is this: we can probably count on one hand how many quarterbacks have been generational talents because of athleticism or physical gifts, right? I mean, most of the guys that you want to talk about that have Super Bowl champions, that will be Hall of Famers, that already are Hall of Famers of the last 40 years were great because of what they have up here, not what they have in the arm talent or their athleticism and their ability to extend plays. I mean, there's a few guys, but even those guys, not many of them actually did it. Not many of them actually won championships. So, you can talk about Anthony Richardson all you want. And he probably gets way too much conversation for someone that has won 7 college football games and, is probably going to be a backup quarterback this year, if we're being honest. But he's one of those situations where if you're going to give him, a lot of people are like, well, why are you hating, right? Just let the guy develop, just see what he can do. Well, if you're going to draft someone 4th overall, pay him all that money, and you're going to compare him to guys like Patrick Mahomes and Jalen Hurts and Tim Tebow and Cam Newton, then he's going to get as much hate as he gets love until he earns more love, right? I mean, that's just kind of how it is in the professional sports world. If you don't perform and you have high expectations in the media and your coaching, and you underperform, you're going to get hated on. Like, that's part of why you make millions of dollars to play a game.
Right. And it's not like we spend time attacking Anthony Richardson's character or something like that. It's just purely
it's never been about character. Yeah. I've never said a negative thing in any of these takes about his character.
That's what I'm trying to say. Is we're just unconfident in his ability to play quarterback at the NFL level. And that's okay.
And for those who ask if we are watching film, yes. Like, I have watched film on Anthony Richardson. I've watched his highlights. I've watched good plays, and I've went and tried to find, some of his worst plays. And yeah, his high is incredibly high. Some of his best plays are some of the best plays you're going to see in college football from the last year. But his lows are really, really low. And at quarterback, you just cannot afford to have highs and lows. You have to be cool, even, have a hell of a lot more highs than you have lows. Otherwise, you will not last many games starting in the NFL. It just doesn't happen. I mean, Jameis Winston, perfect example, one of the guys that has some incredible highs, but because of his lows, when was the last time he started an NFL game? Right. And now
I think honestly, that might be the best comparison that I've heard anybody make is I see Richardson's path in the NFL. His first 2 seasons might look a lot like Jameis Winston's first seasons, where, yes, high number of touchdowns, also leads the league in interceptions, right? So similar situation, and it does not set a team up for success. The ball's the program.
And here's the thing, John. You can compare him to Jameis Winston like I just did, like you just did. But at the end of the day, when Jameis came out, he won a national championship. He was a Heisman finalist. He was, his stats were through the roof at Florida State. And there was questions about him coming out still, but he had way more production, way more security of college evidence, of stats, of, you could see it on film that this is going to translate. Anthony Richardson is about as guessing game as it gets. There's just not a large sample size, and like I said, tons of highs, tons of lows, and you really just have no idea what he's going to be. When it's that kind of thing, and you examine him and you look at his entire game, I think it's much more likely to see him fail than to succeed. And I don't want people to fail, but that's just my opinion based on what I've watched, based on what I've seen, and everyone has a right to disagree or agree with that. But you can't say that I'm wrong, and you can't say that I'm right. We'll have to see.
And look, I mean, we put ourselves out there on this platform knowing full well that we're going to have takes that are going to age very well, and we're going to have takes that are going to age very poorly. And there's
a lot of podcasts. There's a lot of takes on this podcast, John.
Yeah, and the receipts are all there. So 2 years from now, we might be laughing at the things that you said about Anthony Richardson, or we might be like, yeah, we were dead on, right? And the same way that, we didn't do a great job of saying how the Rams season was going to pan out in the preseason, obviously, like things like that, right? It's just, that's how a podcast works. We talk about football. We have opinions. Some of the opinions are going to stink, and some of them are going to be solid.
I will say this for the haters out there. So far on our, a year into this podcast, we've been right, I'd say a decent amount more than we've been wrong. I would give it probably 70-30.
Yeah, I'd say that's fair, and obviously there's going to be some bias there, but like we also don't really stick our necks out over too many things, right? Like our show isn't, like what Skip Bayless does, where he just says the most ridiculous shit he can possibly say because it gets people angry and upset and hating on him, and that we don't like. I think
we're not saying that stuff for clicks or for attention. Like, I'm saying what I truly believe. And it stems from, like John said, and both of us have years and years of playing experience. And I mean, it's what I've done my whole life. It's what I've known my whole life. It's what my entire family is coaches and former play. Like I am, I'd say, smart when it comes to football. So that's kind of what I would like to put out there for those people that think that I'm just some random schmuck, out there just doing whatever I want to say and getting away with it.
That was the last thing that I wanted to say in reference to this. I guess from now on, you need to actually tell your entire football resume on every single take that you have, just so that, everybody knows that you have one, because apparently nobody's going to do that research. But you can't expect them to, but it's so
unbelievable
to me. Yeah. Anyways, we can put that to bed. We're on a relatively short episode today, so we're going to move on to the next topic, which is Matt. I think his last name is Ariza, the Punt God, who was essentially accused of being involved in a gang rape going into last year's
rookie season. Yeah,
his rookie season. He was, very obviously he was drafted as a punter, so he's pretty legit. And was essentially kicked out of the league and all of that stuff. It clearly did not end well for him. The current update, and I want to speak, as factually with the information that I can in reference to this. The evidence was reviewed on whether or not to bring a criminal case to trial, and the evidence. So it's not even that they didn't have sufficient evidence to take him to trial. It's that they reviewed the evidence, and the evidence suggested that he was not even present at the party that this alleged gang rape had taken place. Additionally, the evidence from this report suggests that she was underage, and he admitted to, being with her underage. But according to both her friends and other witnesses, she was lying about her age at the party. She also claimed that she was too intoxicated to know what was going on, both from her friends and other eyewitnesses. That was also allegedly not the case. And apparently there's video evidence from every single sexual encounter that happened over that night, which is wild to think about. And all of it is to suggest that the situation was consensual. Now, again, I'm not saying I'm, not a jury. I'm not a judge. I'm not going to go ahead and say, anything how this case is going to pan out, because now it's no longer a criminal case, but it is a civil case, which is where you can sue for, monetary damages rather than put somebody in prison. But point being is, this dude pretty much had his life ruined. I'm sure he will be able to make a recovery in the NFL, but he had his rookie season and a whole lot of opportunity taken away. Opportunity that you don't know if you're going to get back, right?
A lot of guys have had this thing happen to them, John, and don't get a second chance. Your name is tarnished forever, and whether you're guilty or innocent, I do think it's something worth addressing, not only in the NFL but other sports as well, and not even just athletes. Anybody that has kind of a branded name and has a name in the media, this goes both ways. I mean, guys make accusations towards famous females, and sometimes they're true, sometimes they're not. And then a lot of the time it's females accusing famous men of horrible things, and a lot of the time it's true, a lot of the time it's not. And the problem with it is that I think, there's times where the NFL in particular will do their due diligence and investigate. And, the Deshaun Watson example, right? They strung that out, and there was a lot of evidence to say that he was guilty, right? And they continued to string it out, and it kind of damaged the badge, right? And I put quotation marks there, damaged the badge, the NFL logo. That's what they care about, sadly. They don't care about the victims.
And they care about that more than, I was going to say, the justice of the victims a lot of the time.
And that's the reality. It's a sick reality, but it is the reality. You can go back and look at examples of like assault with Ray Rice and Kareem Hunt and Tyreek Hill and, Joe Mixon and all these people that have hit women, and it's on video. And the Ray Rice thing is, I think, the biggest example, and the NFL's grown since then. But when that happened, Goodell and those guys saw that video months before they did anything public. And it's just like, were you just hoping you could sweep this under the rug? What is going on here? So there's definitely a lot that needs to be corrected. And I think it is worth noting, though, that I think out of the fear of what the badge looks like, sometimes they'll act too early or they won't act fast enough. Deshaun Watson, in that case, they didn't act fast enough and it made him look bad. And in this case, because they're afraid to look bad, they acted too soon, and they almost ruined a kid's life. I mean, I probably for the last 2 years did ruin his life. And again, you Google his name, and I guarantee the first thing that's going to come up is guilty for that, right? Whether he did it or not. And you're saying, what the legal system is starting to point to is that he is innocent, and it's just sickening and it's sad. And I think it's just as bad to ruin someone's life and accuse somebody of something like that than it is to do that to somebody, because whether he did or didn't do it, everyone's going to think he did it, because that's
he's
just
paying
kind
the
of what
consequences
society.
for it.
Yeah, that's what society.
And not to mention too, what really makes this shitty too is that every single time something like this happens, it casts doubt on the situations in which there are real victims, right? Like, rape's a serious thing, and people that are famous or are in positions of power use those positions of power to harm, a lot of the time women, sometimes men, whatever. And every single time there's a situation like this, it makes it a lot harder for those people that actually do have a legitimate story and a legitimate case to make their story known, and for, the person that hurt them to get justice for what they did. So
you're an incredibly sick person if you do anything like that. And whether you're the one committing the crimes, you're a sick person, and you're a very sick person as well if you're someone who accuses someone falsely of doing that. Because like you just said, and I want to reiterate it, you think that you're doing it to get self-gain, to get money, to put somebody else down. A lot of the time it's just out of spite, like an ex-girlfriend or something. To some of these guys, like on draft night, they'll leak false info. And there was an Ohio State defensive back a few years ago, first round projection, night before the draft. His ex-girlfriend didn't like the fact that he wasn't going to give her some of the money, or whatever their fight was, and threatens, blackmails him. I'm going to leak this. I'm going to leak this, and leaked false information. His draft stock fell like 2 rounds, and we're talking millions of dollars that would have changed his life, his family's life. And because she wasn't going to be involved in it like she wanted to, she, and she was proven to be lying in the long run. But you can't go back and redraft. You can't go back and give Matt Araiza his rookie season left. You can't give him another chance. So it's tough. It's a tough situation. There's no easy solution to it, but I just want the NFL to do a better job of being more consistent in how they do these things. You can't pick and choose because Deshaun Watson's, an MVP candidate and one of the biggest names in the league. You treat his situation different than a rookie punter who's coming in for his first season.
And that's what I was going to say is, and Pat McAfee says this a lot of the time when it comes to, people in these positions of power, of like, be who you can afford to be. Right. And like, what he means by that is like, apparently if you're Deshaun Watson, right, like you can get away with 23 sexual assault cases and only get a 6 or 9 game suspension. But if you're not, the proven one of the top 5, top 10 quarterbacks in the league, apparently, one accusation is going to cause you to
is enough to get you,
to
end
maybe your whole
career.
career.
Yeah. Oh yeah. His career still might be done, dude.
Yeah. I mean, I think a team will give him, a tryout or something like that, or at least I'm hoping so, assuming that it is, the evidence does point to the fact that he's innocent.
He's a game changing. The fact of the matter is, when in his very short stint with the Bills in preseason, he's a game changing punter. Like,
he's incredible.
And that is becoming increasingly more important in the NFL, as you've noted. Some teams, and they're investing in punters in this year's draft, being able to flip field position and pin some of these quarterbacks deep. Your chance of scoring on a drive, if you start inside of the 20 and then inside of the 10, drastic difference in your chances of getting points on that drive, whether you start inside the 20 or inside the 10 compared to outside the 25. Huge difference. And we can actually probably pull up the numbers if people want to check, or if people want to Google that themselves. But you're talking like large percentage difference in your odds of getting points on that specific drive. So
I think that's why we paid Fox.
Jack Fox is a game changer.
Especially since our defense
is a game changer with the Rams. He kept them in some of the games last year, even with Stafford out and all these guys that weren't playing for LA. I mean, their punter was literally changing the game for them. It's consistently, the Jets, they had a great punter last year, and it really helped that defense thrive, because you put the pressure on an offense and you have a defense that can be downhill and aggressive, and that's what they want to be. It changes your whole thing. And so, of course, teams like the Patriots, who are defense first, special teams first, they went and got the punter out of Michigan State. he's going to change that franchise for them because Bill Belichick's going to have good situations to attack quarterbacks, put offenses in bad situations.
If your defense is starting every drive from the 10-yard line versus the 30-yard line or something like that, massive difference. Absolutely
huge
massive
difference.
So,
yeah.
Moving on to the next topic, Lamar saying with his, reinvigorated offensive weapons around him that he's going to throw 6K this year. Mark, what's your immediate take on that? And honestly, obviously 6K is a crazy bold number, but at the same time, this dude has never had a competent receiving core to throw to since he's really been a player. And I'm very excited to see how much he can cook with that receiving core and the tight ends and a good offensive line and all of these things that he has, because there's no excuses now and he has his money now. So I'm honestly hoping that he pops off.
Yeah. Let's come back down to earth for a second, John. 6,000 is ridiculous. Let's make it more fair. Let's say like over under, I don't know, 3,500 would be my guess, and I'm going to probably say under. Here's why. No, this is definitely the best receiving core he's ever had. I agree with you. But he has had some weapons in previous years, and he's had decent passing seasons, none near what he's talking about going for this year. I don't think that getting OBJ and Zay Flowers takes you from being what he is and makes him some sort of superhero passer. Lamar is good because of his dual threat ability. He's never going to be like a pass first, I'm going to throw for 4,000 yards guy like Patrick Mahomes is.
Maybe 5-6K total yards if he truly pops
right.
off. But like
right.
we have,
even
I think what, like
is
10 or 15 quarterbacks ever to get over 5,000.
Yeah,
I just Googled it. The record is Peyton Manning's 2013 season. He had 5,600 yards. So we're talking all-time passing record. Probably not going to happen.
No, it ain't going to happen, right? And he's not going to get close to it. But I actually think that Lamar Jackson and the Ravens are going to have a bit of a letdown year because I think that the hype is starting to circle around them. He got his money. They got weapons for him. They're still pretty good on defense. They just continue to get better on offense. They got a new OC that fits what they're going to try to do better. I just think they play in a really tough division, and I still have my doubts about Lamar Jackson and his ability to be as good as people think he'll be. I think he's a top 8 quarterback in the NFL, but a lot of people will put him in the top 4 or 5, and I don't think he's close to that. And I just think that there's going to be a bit of a letdown in Baltimore this year, and I don't think he comes anywhere near statistically what he's talking about, and I don't think that they win nearly as many games as people think.
Well, look, I'll say this. I mean, their division is a lot more competitive than I think people are giving it credit for. The Browns are, no pushover team. They'll be a better team, and I think the Steelers are also going to be better this year. I think they drafted really, really well. Their OC obviously is not great, but Tomlinson has still not had a losing season. And so, if the historic record is true, then we can probably expect them to be an 8-9 win team at a minimum this year. And so it's not even to discredit Baltimore. It's just, you have those two teams plus the Bengals, who are still probably a Super Bowl contender as they have been the past 2 years. Like, it's tough. Now, can they still potentially win the division? I think so. I think that they have the defense for it. I think that their offense is there for it. I'm curious to see how this new offensive coordinator meshes with Lamar and the weapons around him. But
do you think that they can beat Cincinnati?
I think so. I mean, shit, man, they were a very embarrassing mistake at the end zone away with their second string quarterback away from beating Cincinnati. So
I don't know.
Take that for what it's worth. I mean,
I knew you were going to say that too, and it's a good point. It's I don't know. I just think that the Bengals got better as well.
They did
at some key spots, and I think Joe Burrow is just going to continue to get better.
I mean, look, you'd like to think that any team that had a half decent draft class or free agency got better this year. So it's just how things kind of fall. But yeah, I'm actually really excited to watch that division because I think it's going to be a bloodbath. I mean, I think the entire AFC really is, with the exception of the AFC South. I mean, every single one of those divisions, I look at these teams and I'm like, holy crap, it is really difficult to predict kind of, where the end of season standings are going to be. NFC, quite a bit more predictable, I'd say, right?
Do you have any teams? Do you have maybe way too early, but like kind of as like a draft cool down? We're kind of coming down from this draft high. We'll still be putting out more of the draft recap grades, and I know there's more teams we got to do, and those will be coming over the course of the next few weeks. But is there a team maybe from the AFC and the NFC, John, that with their draft, with free agency, with where they were last year, kind of a sleeper team that you've started to build a little momentum towards?
NFC, absolutely. NFC, that team is the Panthers. I think everybody, even the betting odds are saying Saints are going to win that division. And I would say, yeah, I think the Saints are going to win that division. I think they have the best team right now. But do not sleep on the Panthers, man. Frank Reich is one hell of a coach. He's surrounded himself with a lot of great coaches. And they're not set up to be like a contender or anything this year. But what they do is they have a really, really good foundation. They have a great front seven. They have a solid offensive line and run game. And they have a rookie quarterback who's surrounded by competent receivers and competent coaches. I don't think they're going to be a half bad team.
I agree with you. If Bryce Young exceeds expectations, they are right there because they have kind of these other pieces that they'll need, and they play in a division that's open if they can compete with the Saints. So as a Saints fan, that's bold of you to say, and it's honorable that you would acknowledge.
I gotta give credit where it's due. I mean, they're the team I'm most scared of in that division. I think we are going to absolutely mop the floor with the Falcons and Tampa Bay this year. I don't even think it's going to be close.
I think it's a 2-horse race there.
Yeah, they might give a run for their money. Sorry, go ahead. If you have an NFC team, I was going to switch to the AFC too.
Yeah, I'll give my NFC and then you'll switch to the AFC. My NFC team is the Seahawks. I really like how Seattle drafted. I really like the fact that they brought back basically everybody from last season. They got Bobby Wagner, their heart and soul of Seattle, back, Super Bowl champion. And Geno Smith, I think, is going to take a huge step because last year was like his prove it, like the whole world thinks I can't do this. Now the world's giving him some credit, and I think he's going into a better situation this year with the confidence. I will say this, in my years of playing, I watched guys that once they figured out the confidence that they can do it, like once someone who has the talent finally believes in themselves, and it's not just people saying, hey man, you could do this, you could do this. You hear that your whole life, and then sometimes the people that truly can do it, once they learn that they can, astronomical difference in their play. And I think Geno Smith's reached a maturity finally in his career where he truly believes in himself, and it's not just people telling him that he has the potential to do it. He can do it, and he knows it. And now he has a good team around him, a better defense, and received like one of the best receiving cores in the league. I think that you could see Seattle steal that division and be an NFC sleeper. And I'm saying it again, I've said it in recent episodes, Geno Smith, MVP, bold prediction. Just if you're a gambler, just check what the odds are on that and maybe just sprinkle a couple bones on that because he's going to be special this year.
Yeah, I completely agree with you because everybody was projecting the Seahawks to be like one of the very worst teams in the league last season.
Both of us
were. And again, so was everybody else. And then Pete Carroll was like, all of you sit down. This is not a rebuild. This is a reload. We're going to be fine. And sure enough, they make it into the playoffs. Yes, like by the skin on their teeth. And yes, they lost to their division rivals. But to very quickly bounce back from your franchise quarterback like it's nothing, and then you're loaded with draft picks thanks to Denver, right? Who now has to deal with the whole Russell Wilson problem.
And then you take those draft picks and you draft well, and you meet the needs that help you win now. Because that's clearly, I love that Seattle was like, rebuild? Nah, we're just going to reload. And that's exactly what they did. And I'm very excited to see what they do. I worry about the 49ers. I think the 49ers in the NFC are always going to be a threat because of their coaching and because of their ability to run the ball and their ability to play defense. But they lost a lot of key pieces from last year's team. D'Amico Ryans is a huge loss. And Seattle's bringing everybody back. Everybody.
Yeah, and look, I mean, how long are you going to get away with being such a well-coached team that you can get away with not really having a stable ship at quarterback. Man, I don't care. Look, Shanahan's amazing. What he can do with his quarterback talent is incredible. Absolutely incredible. He should be in the running for coach of the year every single year because of the way that he runs that team. With that being said, what does he not have? Super Bowls. Why? Quarterback, right? So somehow the Seahawks were able to figure that one out a little bit faster than them, which you would think after you trade away multiple first-round picks to go get your guy, that wouldn't be a problem anymore.
So
it's
John,
hairy.
there's a rumor going around in San Francisco, and then we'll get into our AFC teams. Sam Darnold was courtside at one of these NBA playoff games with McCaffrey, Kittle, all those guys. So the star power always sits courtside at these games. It's always an interesting thing. The camera loves to show all the actors, actresses,
Right.
whatever. Sam Darnold was the guy that was there with these guys, not Purdy. Is there any chance that Sam Darnold's the face of the 49ers this season at quarterback?
Man, I think that they set the system up where it's like, hey, our other two guys can get like literally shot by a cannon. And at least we have another guy that kind of plugs in and plays. And I think that Sam Darnold might be that guy for them. I don't know, right? If you told me who's going to be the day one starter or week one starter for the 49ers, I really have no clue. I'd have to roll a dice on it because I couldn't tell you if it's going to be the guy they traded multiple first-round picks to go get, the guy that played really solid for them even though he was Mr. Irrelevant, or this dude with NFL experience that probably is going to thrive in a system that is just built to be so quarterback friendly that it's hard to mess up. I have no clue. So
notice you said roll a dice and not flip a coin because there's three guys.
There's three of them, right? So
three guys
to be able to divide it by
who
three.
the hell knows?
Going to AFC teams, man, I don't know because again, like that entire division. Or not division, that entire conference is pretty loaded. I would say, and you can tell me whether or not you think this is a sleeper team. I would say the Chargers. I'm going to drink the Kool-Aid one last time because I think they have Kellen Moore as the offensive coordinator, and that's what they needed to really maximize the talents of that offense that is surrounding Justin Herbert. And obviously Justin Herbert being an incredible talent himself. That's who I'd consider my sleeper. If they can't do it this year, then they're forever just going to Charger every single season for, the rest of Chargers' existence. Because holy shit, man, talk about underperforming. Like that's just what they do. Unfortunately, I really like them. You really like them. I know you do. So it's just disappointing to see how they end up every single season, just choking it away.
Yeah. It's funny that the Chargers are your team because the team I'm picking is the team that came back from down 30 against the Chargers in last year's playoffs, the Jags.
So would you consider them a sleeper? Because I think they're the favorite to win the division by a long shot.
I'm talking about coming out of the AFC. I'm talking about I would say the Jags are – I would say, in terms of winning their division, yeah, the Chargers are still a sleeper. Obviously, in terms of coming out of the AFC, yeah, the Chargers are even a bigger sleeper. But in terms of coming out of the AFC and representing the AFC in the Super Bowl, I would say the Jags are a sleeper. Right, because you have the Bills, Bengals, and Chiefs as the big three-headed giant that everyone's going to talk about, and the Jags are kind of like that afterthought. The Jags were a unforced fumble away from being right there to beat the Chiefs last year in the playoffs at Arrowhead, and they drafted well. Trevor Lawrence gets another year of development with Doug Peterson. Calvin Ridley, I think, is going to come in and probably win comeback player of the year. I think he's going to have an incredible season for Jacksonville.
Are you allowed to win that if you get suspended for gambling, and that's the reason?
I think you are.
Oh, that's
I don't
awesome.
know. We'll have to fact check.
J-Mo's got to be taking
awesome.
notes.
Yeah, that would be awesome if he does. I think he's gonna. Yeah, I think he's gonna come in and just do really, really well. And I think the Jags are going to be even better on defense. They were super young on defense last year, so that's my sleeper team in the AFC. And yeah, like you mentioned, their division is dog shit. So
yeah, they're going to beat up.
They're
going to
roll through their division. Trevor Lawrence, you're I was thinking about this the other day, and I think what we're seeing, and this kind of loops our entire episode back into one big thing, comes full circle. With how this year's draft went, and with Anthony Richardson going to the Colts, and with Stroud going to the Texans, and just Trevor Lawrence in
With
this
Levis going
division.
to the Titans too. Don't
Well, yeah,
forget
with
that one.
Levis going to the Titans too, second round though, so he's like not worth talking about.
Damn.
But yeah, I mean, well, whatever, we'll throw his name in there. That division to me reminds me of a guy named Tom Brady and what he did to the Jets, the Bills, and the Dolphins for 20 years because they could not compete because they had the superior quarterback, they had the superior coach. The coach and the quarterback had a connection and a team chemistry that was contagious from those two guys and how strong their bond was. And what I see in Doug Peterson and Trevor Lawrence and this young group of talent that they have around them and the foundation that the Jags have and the lack of competition skill wise at the quarterback position, at the coaching positions in this division, I see 15 years Trevor Lawrence, Tom Brady esque of just dominating their division. And if they can dominate their division and if they can just take one more leap and be Super Bowl contenders like what Tom Brady and the Patriots were able to do, obviously Brady did it really early in his career. But Trevor Lawrence is still really young, man.
I mean, what a crazy turnaround too. The fans were wearing bags on their head in the stadium 2 years ago, and now we're saying it's. And again, you don't want to call it way too early, but I mean, we are like there is a very, very, very high chance that they are a division winner. Probably the highest chance out of any other division in the league is the Jaguars have the highest chance to go and win their division, I think. So.
Yeah.
One last topic. Sorry, go ahead if you want to say something.
I was just gonna say it's special what's going on in Jacksonville. I love how that came full circle with Anthony Richardson and pulled it back in. Just one more dunk on Richardson and Levis and people that think those guys are going to be good in the NFL. Trevor Lawrence is going to own your ass for the next 20 years.
That's very true. And then the last thing that we were going to talk about is look. Arizona Cardinals are probably shaping up to be the worst team in the league this year, probably by a decent margin. But the following year, they're set up really well. They have a crazy amount of draft capital to work with. Mark said there's a realistic probability that they for sure have 2 top 5 picks, but they might be 1 and 2 overall, depending on how long it takes to D'Amico Ryans to get things rolling with the Texans. So look, they're going to have a lot of draft capital. They're going to have a lot of free cap space because they're kind of ripping the Band-Aid off and doing the clearinghouse and the retooling right now with this new, management coaching administration. So really it boils down to, is this new management and this new coach good for the Arizona Cardinals? And can they manage the crazy amount of resources that they're about to have at their disposal? Right. So kind of the last topic to tie things up, will the Arizona Cardinals be once again a really damn good team with a really damn good record in a couple of years from now?
Yeah, that's I'm in San Diego right now, and so one thing I think when you're in a different spot, just being me, I met a guy who is a Cardinals fan, right? He's from Arizona, not too far from the West Coast. So and he put this idea out there, and it hadn't really crossed my mind. We've talked about the Cardinals, we've done draft grades, we've looked at, we've said that they got a lot of value, blah blah blah. But he kind of sat me down. He's like, "Listen, man, I'm a lifetime Cardinals fan. Here's what's going to happen. Here's what I think is going to happen." He says, "Kyler Murray is either going to be huge for us because we've already paid him. And he's going to obviously do the best that he can, or we're going to suck." And he painted it this way. He said, Kyler Murray becomes what he's capable of becoming, and he's like an MVP candidate, and we're great. Or he sucks, he fails, we lose a lot of games, we get the first and probably second, third, or fourth pick. If we have to assume the Texans probably won't be that good, and we are looked at as one of the best trades in NFL draft history at that point because they'll probably get Caleb Williams out of that situation, and then who knows with their other pick. And then you're looking at them rebuilding their franchise around someone people are comparing to, and I think rightfully comparing to this time around, Patrick Mahomes. And he's like, and then we trade Kyler Murray and get even more value. And he's like, so it's kind of a win-win for how we've set ourselves up. So basically, they bet on Kyler Murray, and then they weren't so sure that they should have. And basically what they did is they set up they hedged their bet. and now they have incredible draft value next season. So if things don't go right for them with Kyler, they'll be able to get more value for him, and they'll be able to kind of find their next guy, whether that's Caleb Williams or Drake May or whatever the situation is going to be. Obviously, most are saying Caleb Williams. They're in a great spot, and I just think it was worth noting. And I think that I just didn't even cross John or my mind of like they've really set themselves up here. No matter what happens with Kyler, like they're going to be okay. And I think that's brilliant.
And let's reel it in for a second and also say they're going to be horrible this year. Like I'm putting more money on that than I'm putting money on them being, or the Seahawks being horrible last year, right? Because I was
the guy I was talking to believes in Kyler. So
yeah,
he's
but
like,
Kyler's not going to be here until what, week 9 or 10?
This guy was telling me that Kyler might be ready for week 1.
I'll
his
believe
9 months or whatever it is, because ACL surgery, recovery time, and everything
it went from like 11 to 13
it's like
to 9 to 10. Yeah.
So he, his 9-month date puts him in during fall camp. So there's a chance if he's on the right track, he heals correctly, he gets in the right, and obviously he's going to have the best medical team and training staff in the world, getting him physically ready to go. And if he's ready to go, and we see Kyler Murray become what obviously the Cardinals thought he would become, drafting him number 1, paying him all that money, they're in a great spot. And if he isn't, or if they lose a bunch of games, or he isn't healthy in time, you lose a bunch of games, you get better draft value. So
yeah, so it's really a win-win situation for their future. Yeah. So, and again, I mean, this is also dependent on their new management and coaching administration not fumbling the bag, because management and coaches can do that. So a lot of question marks, but you're right that, they could be in a much worse situation. So look, we're running on a little bit of a short episode because Mark's on vacation and all that good stuff. But we appreciate everybody for tuning in. I think the past 3 episodes were like the first, second, and third longest episodes we've ever done. So this one's going to be a little bit more chill, kind of a slow news
to the
week
point.
anyways.
To the point.
Yep.
Covered some of the important things. Not a ton of news going on in the NFL, but I'm pretty busy this week. Otherwise, would have had some film breakdown stuff. That stuff's coming soon, guys. So I know we've mentioned it a couple times. We're gonna get some good film sessions in here.
Totally.
Break down some of the offensive schemes and the passing game, running game that these teams in college and pro are running. Why it works, why it doesn't work, how do you stop it? We're going to continue to get some awesome guests on. Like John said at the beginning of this episode, we've grown a ton, and it's happened pretty quickly, and we appreciate all the support we're getting. And obviously it just drives us to want to do even more cool stuff and get even cooler guests and do, longer episodes with more in-depth breakdowns, stuff like that. So we appreciate it. Obviously our merch and stuff is in the ticker down here on the bottom. We have more exciting merch coming under development.
Actively working on it.
And I will say way too early, but it's going to be pretty sweet. And we're not going to give you any ideas of what it is or anything yet. Just it's going to be pretty sweet. Keep an eye out for it. And again, episodes every week. So tune in, check us out.
Yes, sir. And I think we've gotten the system down pretty well with the short form, the medium form, and obviously the long podcasts. So
yeah, shout out to John too. If you guys don't want to listen to our monotone voices for an hour or whatever, he's putting together shorter videos that are like, I'd say between 5 and 10 minutes. Yeah, 5 and 10 minutes of like some of the highlight topics from these episodes. So if you don't have an hour and you want to just listen to one of the highlights or one of the best arguments or one of the best takes we have, check those out too, because those will be on our YouTube page as well. And if you want to just see a minute of us ranting about stupid shit, check us out on TikTok or Instagram or Twitter or wherever else we are. Because
we are looking forward to welcoming your very kind comments about Mark's playing career. And
I have feelings. Can I just put that out there? Like I have feelings, And
no, they don't care. They don't care.
I don't. But like,
you're an object
if
to
you're
them.
out there and you're a hater, and I listen, because just because I hate on Anthony Richardson, does that give them a right to hate me? One could say yes, but like, can we?
Kinda, yeah.
Can we not do it like so? Harsh. Like I'm a person. I'm not just like some. You can't just bully me off the face of the planet, like.
Hey man, you made that grave for yourself by by sharing your opinions on the internet, really. I think.
Yeah, I'll dig that grave and I will stand in that grave, right? And then when Anthony Richardson's career ends, I'll bury him in the grave and I'll rise up out of it.
You heard it here first.
You heard it here first.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We will catch you next week.
Love
Peace.
you guys.